Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Zach Celadonia.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma. Joining me over to my side here is my colleague and friend, Zach Flash Celadonia, and I usually start these things off by asking, how you doing? So why not? How you doing, Flash? Doing good today, man? I'm feeling, after this game, it's like I felt good, but then I also felt like bittersweet. It was like highs and lows, man. It's like Red Bull and coffee mixed with alcohol. Like you can't, they get pulled in every direction, and we know why. But I'll ask, how you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Bit of a bit of a later start today than we're used to. We wanted to wait for Tomlin's end of the year presser to go through, so we didn't miss anything. And you let me have my morning, which is nice. I'm not used to having my Monday mornings, except I operated at the pace of starting the show earlier, so it was kind of too little, too late. But it's fine. I'm not mad about it. No problem. I still got stuff done. I went to go get toilet paper.
Adulting over here.
That's always a fun surprise when you wake up and you realize, is that all we have? I had that moment when I was in the bathroom doing my thing, and I'm like, that cannot be all we have. So made an emergency run to Sheets. Didn't feel like going to a real deal gas station, but I grabbed the toilet paper and some like snacks, and I go to the register, and the cashier is a real weird experience. He was like, been there before, man. And I kind of looked at him and I said, been where? You had to poop before? Yeah. I'm buying toilet paper. It was early or late for him, I guess, if he was there from the night shift. But it was just it caught me off guard, and I was like, yeah, man, I know vibes, right? Got to poop. So went to go get that. Came home, showered, and you said it perfectly. It's a bittersweet ending to the Steelers season, but I'm oddly at peace with how things ended. I told a lot of people before the game started that as long as we finished on a high note and won the game in a good fashion, and we didn't, if we were to miss out on the playoffs, that was a second place medal, metaphorically, that I was okay with accepting. As long as we finished strong, which we did. Sucks we didn't make the playoffs, but that's the Jets' fault, not our fault.
Yeah, I was gonna get there, but it's kind of weird how you were talking about all the adulting and stuff, and you said like you showered, like you don't ever shower before the podcast or anything. It was just, you kind of do surprise me sometimes, being up earlier than me. There's like a text sitting there, and I'm like, I get the kid on the bus sometimes. The kid doesn't know this. It's like, daddy's going back to bed, man. This is like, I went to bed late. I need my rest. I need my 8 hours. So
it's because of my dogs. I don't have human kids, but they get up like
yes.
every morning at 6, no matter what. They don't care how tired I am. And I can go back to bed, but I always inevitably end up laying there and just scrolling on my phone. And then the more stuff you look at on your phone, I feel like the more awake you get, because it just like wakes your brain up.
Yeah, too much thoughts put into your head. It's like you're sitting there. It's like the counting sheep thing, and it doesn't work. You know what I mean? And the blue light too. I think the blue light, like I'm going to use that like night mode, like early in the morning. I have a back cave for a bedroom, man. It is pitch black. I got the blackout curtains, you name it, the color changing bulbs. Everything is just, it's low level. But I'm disappointed though. You went to Sheets. You said you got some snacks. Did you get a Schmisket? Did you get a Schmegel? Did you get like?
I got a bag of hot fries.
Oh jeez, oh man, and I'm over here, and I got the McCafe. I got the McDonald's breakfast today, man. We're always talking. We haven't talked about McDonald's for a little while, but it was when I'm traveling or I'm in a pinch. Like this morning, I was hungry, man, and it was just, that happens when you eat like I don't even know how many ounce steak I had tailgating. When that's your breakfast the day before, and then you're not supplementing with like a 16-ounce steak or whatever the hell I had. I wish I had a photo of this, and I got to go back and see. We had NFL Network people come by and film the tailgate, and I have no idea if I was like shown with,
that's so cool. I've always wanted to be there when they get the crowd shots on game day with Rich Eisen.
Oh yeah, right up front, and me and the Cuzzo grilling. He had these huge steaks, and it was like he's trying to like flip the thing, and it's like sliding off this Steelers branded, we got Steelers everything. You got to. It's the only way to roll, right? So
easy to buy gifts for.
Yeah. Well, run out of ideas, although my sister-in-law got me like one of those foam #1 fingers. Oh, I wish I had it sitting here, but I already put it with my other stuff. And it says like #1 fan, but it's an oven mitt. So it's like kind of like pseudo. It's like kind of fake. Like the rest of it's blacked out, but it's
I
like the
can picture
#1
it.
finger. Yeah, it's a cool thing, man. You need it because you never know when you're going to handle hot objects. You got to be prepared when you're out there. When you're tailgating, it's like camping. You got to be prepared for all of the elements. And thank goodness, like it was great football weather yesterday. It was about 40 degrees. It was a little nippy, a little wind cutting through, but
It's a
otherwise, like it
beautiful
was
day. The first
perfect.
3 quarters were so nice. It got a little
Yeah.
chilly in the fourth, but those first 3 quarters, sun was hitting just right. It was like
Oh, see,
God was smiling on the Steelers, per usual.
I'm in the shade because I'm on the Steelers bench side. And so the shades got me immediately when you have that daylight savings time change, which they need to scrap that. That's just, I'm still screwed up from it. I still haven't caught up or adjusted to it. So, but yeah, the shade is hitting me like immediately. So it's a little cool. It's a little brisk, but it's not that bad. However, we do have something. You already alluded to this. You're jumping ahead of the topics for today. JETS, which I was hearing a little bit of that in the stands. I'm not sure if you heard that. The JETS, Jets
I
thing.
did hear the chants from the crowd.
They suck. Like I was watching some of that game, on the phone, and the way this game ended up at the end for them, for those who may not have saw it, there was multiple pass interference calls in the fourth quarter. I think one was called a horse collar tackle but it was from the nameplate or whatever, maybe.
They called a horse collar tackle on
Yeah.
Quinn Williams, the defensive lineman, for grabbing Jalen Waddle around his nameplate and dragging him down. It wasn't an actual horse collar.
Yeah, and then there was something else that was called too. There was an intentional grounding called on Flacco, and it just didn't seem like he could fall or find anybody like at all. And it ended up a Jason Sanders 50-yard field goal with 23 seconds remaining in the game. Jets had a couple opportunities with like about 6 minutes left, but they couldn't muster anything.
No, man, it was
Yeah,
it was
it's
weird
painful.
being at the game, and like depending on who you were around and what cell type of service they had, you were getting different things. Like I had people saying, "Oh yeah, the Jets stopped them," or "Oh, the Jets just punted." Oh,
Yeah.
now they're up, now they're down. There was no consistency until like the end of the Steelers game that I was able to gather enough to realize that it wasn't going too great for the old Jets. And in hindsight, I should have known Flacco was going to play like shit. I wanted to believe that he wouldn't play like shit, you know? Enough, at least not shitty play for the Jets to come through, maybe defensively or just do enough to win the game. But I think it might be done for Joe Flacco, man. This game was as ugly as it gets. He had a nice gig going for the past like 5 years where he was just bumming around as a backup, but the cat's out of the bag now that he really can't do anything good anymore. And it's a shame to get that close and have to bring ourselves to the level of rooting for Joe Flacco to come through in a big way and the Jets. But that's what you get. You know, I joked earlier a second ago that that's the Jets' fault. It's really our fault for not beating the Jets earlier in the season. So you can't be too mad, which helps with I guess the sweet part of the bittersweet ending of the season is like we did the best we could with what we had with these last 6 games. You know, we needed help to get in because of how the early parts of the season went, and we didn't get it.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you that. That's actually the next topic, and I mean, it's Skylar Thompson, dude. Like 7th-round pick up against a veteran like Joe Flacco. Like, come on, man. I'm burned.
That's what I was
I feel
telling myself
burned.
before the game. I was like, dude, if I try to take myself out of the biased situation and put myself in a non-biased point of view mindset, and I was thinking if I was rooting for the Dolphins in this, I would say, okay, we've got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, but we've played like ass the past like 5 weeks. We can't do anything right. We're on our third quarterback. I would have been more worried if I was rooting for the Dolphins. So I sold myself on, well, the Jets have a good defense. The Jets, they have a decent offensive line, I guess.
Yeah, I was sold
think
on all
Salvo's
that.
a good coach, and it just the cards
11-6.
were stacked in our favor, I think, but it was an uncontrollable thing.
It was 11-6, and it was only 11 because of a safety at the end where they tried to do like whatever lateral business that they were trying to do. I mean, Skylar Thompson was 20 of 31, 152, a 76.3 rating. Joe Flacco was 18 of 33, 149, a 66.4 rating. They were both they were ass. There's no other way of saying it. They were ass. So,
Battle of mid.
yeah. So that's like they needed the one thing that happened was the Bills took care of business against the Patriots. That game was back and forth a little bit, but Bills' emotional high, they weren't going to let that slip away. And you were just, come on, Jets, do something. Like it's like the meme where you're poking with the stick.
Yeah.
That's where it's like some folks were asking the question. It's like, are you ending the season on a high note? Is it better to end this way than it would be you make the postseason and then you got to go to Buffalo? Because that was the only scenario after the game was ruled no contest between the Bills Bengals. I don't know. I've kind of got both opinions of that. Like, I'm a firm believer of get in, make the postseason. Sound like Mike Tomlin, being the competitor he is, he's not going to say it, but he's disappointed. He wanted to be in the playoffs. Some fans, I actually have seen the turnaround of fans. It's funny though, because it's like, this is like the ebb and flow that we saw to the season. You've mentioned a couple of different items with this, and it was like, well, they should have just beat, the Jets to begin with. Well, they could have and should have, and we were talking about Kenny and the Jets, and Kenny finally came in, but you had like lazy ass play from, I want to say Chase Claypool, who, thank you. The Steelers now have the 32nd pick in the NFL draft due to that trade to the Chicago Bears. So thank you, Bears, for taking Claypool off their hands. That's the reason why there weren't all these picks thrown by Kenny Pickett after the bye week as well. He was responsible for that. Freiermuth, there was another one that maybe Kenny shouldn't have thrown. Kenny kind of grows into his own. Are you headed into like a high note? Could things have been a little bit different? Yeah, Gunner has one doink off of his face mask. Should they have played Kenny earlier in the season? Well, let's table that for a second. Are you feeling better about ending with a win against the Cleveland Browns, beating them in very decisive fashion, and not being, once again, for 33 years now in a row, the Steelers have finished with a better record than the Cleveland Browns? You got to go all the way back to like Chuck Noll era to when the Steelers were in the basement of whatever division, AFC North, AFC Central.
Before they had electricity.
Pretty much. Before they had texting. It's kind of like the Bengals stat with playoffs and not being in the playoffs, right? Would you have rather ended this way and not made the postseason, or would you have rather went to Buffalo and, do you think, according to the quote from Stan Savran and Charlie Batch in the postgame, had maybe a puncher's chance? I don't know. Steelers have been playing really well defensively, everything like that. It's a hard environment to go and win in, having a rookie quarterback. Is that a better experience if they would have went there and got the brakes beat off them once more, even though the circumstances were different? Or would you have rather just, finished it the way it is right now?
I'm happy with how the season ended. I'm as happy as I can be without making the playoffs. And I think as of about 4 weeks ago, when the 5-game win streak got off and running, the whole, well, they might as well lose the last few games just became a stupid point to make, because even if they would have lost a few of these last ones, we're picking 17th in the first round. They wouldn't have gotten much higher than the 17th pick. So I don't see the positives anymore in finishing the season out in a tanking way, like going about it that way. I saw that side of it when things were going rough and off the rails a bit, like really after Kenny's second concussion. But I'm happy with the way they finished the season, because it's good to finish on a high note when you have such a young roster. And on defense, it's kind of different. Our pillars are all experienced veterans. Minka Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward. They're not young guys by any means. They know what it takes to win. They know what it takes to be a Steeler. They know what's expected of this franchise and this town, and what the fan base expects, and the Steelers themselves. But with guys like Kenny Pickett and George Pickens and Connor Hayward and DeMarvin Leal, all 4 of those rookies came through yesterday in their own way. Some more than others, of course. I know Leal only had like 1 or 2 plays, but they were good plays. And he probably would have had more if he didn't have the injuries this year a little bit. Connor Hayward, a couple big plays. George Pickens and Kenny, obviously, a lot of big plays. They finished the season strong, growing together and seeing and realizing what it took to finish that way. The complacency is a funny term. And I mean, losing in general it's not accepted around here. And I think if they would have gone about a lackluster and given less effort to end the season, it would have just set a really low bar, either subconsciously or not, in these young guys' heads that, okay, well, this is just how it is here. Like, we'll try to win some games. If we don't make it to the playoffs, who cares? That's not really a thing here. It's a thing across the NFL. A lot of franchises don't care that much about winning. They're more into money and they're more into the continuous flow of bringing in new names and new players, new coaches to just pump revenue and get the fans excited. We, the Steelers, are about winning here. And not only the rookies, but for second year guys and third year guys, fourth, like Najee, Pat Fryermuth, Zach Gentry, Alex Highsmith, Kevin Dotson, if he's going to be starting next year, who knows? But these other guys besides the rookies, it's good for them to finish out high too. It just sets a tone for next season, and it not only did it help set a tone, but it gave a good understanding, I think, of it lets you realize that a lot of these younger players, they're in positions now on the depth chart and on the roster that we don't have to panic and address. Like, I think we learned more than enough about Kenny, obviously. Don't have to worry about quarterback. We learned enough about receiver where they could add a body, but it would be kind of a luxury pick at this point or a luxury addition. Learned tight end, we're set. Like, the defensive line, they could add some pieces, but Leal looks like he's going to be a guy. You don't learn these things if you don't finish the season strong, giving your best effort, trying to win games. You go into the season with all these question marks because you took your foot off the gas and you don't know how these guys play till their full potential. So, yeah, short of making the playoffs, I am happy because of all those things. I think it was extremely beneficial for the young players to see what it takes and see their efforts. What's the word I'm looking for? Rewarded, because
Yeah.
we didn't make the playoffs, but they won their last 5 games and they shut a lot of critics up. Not everybody got shut up, but I think that this is a great building block for next season.
Yeah, I do as well. And of course, this all speaks to Mike Tomlin's consistency as a head coach. We were talking offline here about coach of the year type things. It's the one thing, like, everybody wants to talk about playoffs or playoff wins and just so much BS. They wouldn't use the word rebuilding this year, but we knew it was rebuilding year. We tried to tell everyone, we shouted from the mountains, and we talk about some of the wins losses earlier in the year. Or what if they had started Kenny Pickett sooner? I don't think they could have started Kenny Pickett any sooner than they did. You look at the beginning of the season, you got the Bengals on the road. You got to play in their house to open the season, defending AFC champions that just played in the Super Bowl, that a lot of people were picking to get right back there and still are. New England Patriots, and they won that game, but then they lose 4 in a row, which was tough, and it's because you lost TJ Watt because they played 100 freaking snaps in an overtime game. He gets hurt in overtime, and you lose the guy until the bye week. They play against Bill Belichick, and then you have a short 3-day turnaround to play Thursday night in Cleveland. So 2 AFC North games on the road and a home game against Bill Belichick, and you're going to start a rookie quarterback. That, by all means, and I know somebody was in the comments or somebody was on Twitter and they're like, shut up with he didn't get the QB1 reps in camp. No, he didn't. We were still talking about Mason Rudolph having a chance to perhaps play, in the summer. Come on, get out of here.
We were literally there, like, at practice, either in person or getting live updates. They weren't giving Kenny a lion's share of 1 reps. Whenever he would get in, it was exciting, but it was a rare thing. They didn't give him his fair opportunity at the competition. It was really pre-decided the whole time that they were going to go with Mitch. I think so anyway. At this point. And I see both sides of it. I've come around. Like, that's been the one point that I keep coming back to, and I've been my harshest towards Tomlin about is the quarterback competition, or the lack thereof, I should say, and how it was handled. But those are good points. You will never know. No one will ever know if they would have started Kenny right away and he would have gotten off to like an 0-4 start, 0-5. So all things considered, I'm a big man. I can admit that I'm happy now with how things went, because they were able to ease him in. And some people still say it's all Deontay's fault. Mitch got benched because he didn't drag his feet for the touchdown versus the Jets. Dude, are we forgetting that the Browns and Patriots game leading up to that game were just, They were two of the most boring games offensively I'd ever seen. We couldn't do anything on
Yeah.
offense. So yeah, the
Couldn't against the
Jets
Bengals
hook.
either, except for one
What's up?
half. Except for one half and one series in overtime. They didn't do a whole lot against the Bengals either.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So there's this like, oh, he had a quick hook versus the Jets. I think that was just the nail in the coffin, was the 3 points in the first half versus the Jets. I think it was more like, okay, we got beat by the Patriots, got beat by the Browns, because our offense really couldn't do much of anything. Our defense didn't get like torched those games. So I think it was a collection of all those things when they finally decided to turn to Kenny. And yeah, I suppose it was probably the best time to do it, because if they would have messed him up before then, that would have sucked. And if they would have waited much longer, it could have stunted or slowed down his growth to the point that we've seen it right now. So I think that's something that I can switch my point of view and be like, I wanted them to start Kenny right away,
Mhm.
but I can see the positives now of why they just let Mitch have the first crack at it. And I mean, he'll be gone next year after his most recent quotes about wishing he didn't sign so fast. I can't believe that came out
Oh,
so
man.
fast after the game. He told ESPN he wished he didn't jump in and sign so fast. Like,
It
well,
wouldn't. Who does he think he is? It reminds me of like some of the guys who've signed, like a Garrett Blunt, Melvin Ingram, Lance Moore. Like, shut your pie hole. Like, maybe at least those guys a different opportunity. Maybe things work out differently. But no, you are who you are. Where
yeah.
was Trubisky going to go and play this year? Was he going to be better with the Carolina Panthers? Like, for
It's
example,
it's
like,
it's funny too, because you can't, like, how would he have known, like, how do you predict that sort of thing, like, oh, he could have played on the Jets, he could have went like to the Texans or whatever. Dude, the Jets, there was no reason to believe that they weren't going to just roll with Zach Wilson all year until this year started.
and he
So
got
the
hurt.
Jets are out of it.
Yeah.
Like, there's a bunch of teams that have quarterback, that the 49ers, dude, they had Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo, so they weren't gonna, like, it's, oh, well, he could start over the rookie Petty. But it's like, yeah, but nobody knew they were going to be in the situation when Mitch signed here. So there's no like easy answer here for Mitch to be like, oh, I should have gone to this team. Well, how would you have know? How'd you know they were going to lose their quarterbacks or their first two starting quarterbacks? It's just, it was a dud of a
Well,
signing, and it'll be best for both parties when we move on at the end of this year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The Niners. I actually thought, I'm like, would he take a pay cut and just be a backup? And does he realize his role? Absolutely not. And Jerry Dulac has been pretty vocal about, like, with the way Mason Rudolph's been treated, that he feels that Mason won't be back. And it's like, well, gee, that would be like a no-brainer, unless you don't know how transparent these things were in the back rooms and everything like that. And Trubisky coming in, you got to know that they're going to replace Roethlisberger as a franchise quarterback. But this team would not have sniffed the postseason with Mitch being in there the entire time. There's still truthers. Yeah, I saw the tweet that came your way. It was like, and somebody said, wow, there's still some Mitch defenders in week 18. Like, come on, man. This team wins 4 games. A lot of it's defense, but I don't believe that he could lead some of those like late drives or anything like that. He had no chemistry with George Pickens whatsoever, which Pickett to Pickens is just absolutely sick. It is disgusting, like, to see some of the catches and some of the plays that have been made over the latter portion of this season since the bye. They were 2-6 before and 7-2 after. And it's a coulda, woulda, shoulda type situation, and I don't think you could just throw Kenny Pickett to the wolves there. I don't think Mike Tomlin had enough foresight to see 2 AFC North opponents and Bill Belichick, who usually schemes up ways to just destroy rookie quarterbacks, and that might have destroyed him for his career. You don't know the confidence level. But going back to camp, like we were saying, in those early process, if that was like 7 shots, how many times did Kenny actually have like a 7 shots throw? There were days where he didn't have any, and there were days where he had like 1 of the 7, and they were splitting it evenly with Mason Rudolph. And even though they may have had like some guys stepping up and they were throwing to the same groups a lot of times, because remember Deontay Johnson, he wasn't practicing. He was having his little quiet quit or whatever sit out that he was doing for his contract. That gave opportunities to we'll get to that like later. We have some of the topics to talk about, but like how soon we forget about Calvin Austin and Anthony Miller that were in camp, and those guys were logging a lot of time. But Kenny was getting some time with guys like that didn't end up being on the roster at all. So there was even more of a curve there, whereas, that's why Mitchell Trubisky looked better with Deontay Johnson. And this speaks to overall, like, just the job that Mike Tomlin was able to do with this team. And being able to, I understand people are going to say the latter half of the schedule was a lesser part of the schedule than the first half. We knew that too.
Plays in front of you.
That's
You play who the schedule says.
Why do you think Kenny came in against the Jets? Because
Yeah.
they felt, we needed that spark. They felt they could maybe beat that, but you still had the Bills, the Bucks, the Dolphins were looking pretty solid. You had a concussion in the middle of these things where Kenny, was he going to play? Was he not going to play? And I'm not going to look at just the Jets game. People are going to say, we played down to whatever opponent. Zach Wilson had just came back from injury. You didn't have a whole lot of film or any like tendencies that you could like identify with him. You had the turnovers to overcome in that game. The bigger one was Gunnar Olszewski, I think, with the doink. He lost his job in week 2 against the Patriots. You can't muff a punt like that and just give them points. He gifted it. That was 17-14. The Cleveland Browns
Inside job.
Yeah.
Watch the Patriots get him back now.
And then he'll be an all-pro again. That's how it always works, doesn't it? Those bastards. Anyways, just don't make me think of that. Like I despise like the Patriots way, the whole thing about it. Burn it to the ground, man. I could deal without it. The Browns, who I don't like, you knew going there on the road Thursday night was going to be like pretty much a recipe for failure. They still played that pretty tight to the vest. I'm not going to say they should have won that game. I'm going to say they could have won that game. The same with the Jets. And they won against the Bucks. The Miami Dolphins game, if they grab any one of those interceptions, maybe off of Tua Tagovailoa, and they're in field goal range, and mayhaps something there happens as well. There's just a lot where people are talking about the highest paid defense, and they didn't have all those guys. And you see how much of a home wrecker TJ Watt is when he's on the field. And it just speaks to Mike Tomlin. This team could have just folded up, and they beat Tom Brady. They beat Tom Brady with who was in the secondary that game? Josh Jackson,
Quincy Wilson, 2 goats.
Yeah,
we own Tom Brady now.
Trey Norwood, maybe.
He can't even snip the Steelers lately.
Trey Norwood, maybe. So you got to give this man his due and his credit. And I know he's not going to want it. And I get sick, and I don't like hearing about Coach of the Year. I think Coach of the Year is just dumb. And people are going to be like, "Oh yeah, Coach of the Year, and he didn't even win a playoff game." And it's like, yeah, hello, Bruce Arians has entered the chat. Dude had one playoff win until Tom Brady brought all of his buddies down to Tampa. And then it's even debatable then at 7-5 and Brady getting sacked and throwing the most picks up to a point in the season. Either of those things. He just destroys quarterbacks. It's why he's not a coach. Tom Brady was retired. So that's a whole separate rant. Tom Brady's like, pretty much, he told somebody, I know this. Well, I don't know this for a fact, but this is what I see on the surface. Yeah, I'm announcing my retirement unless you get rid of Bruce Arians. And mysteriously, Bruce Arians moves into some paid role to keep his mouth shut within the organization. So, that one just cracks me up to no end, dude. But yeah,
there's so much that goes on in the NFL and all pro sports that nobody sees or knows. It's one of the dark secrets nobody wants to talk about, that elephant in the room, but there's a lot of shady stuff that happens. I mentioned last show how Harbaugh found out, how to cheat and get away with it with the pass interference stuff. Like the NFL head coaches, owners, they're all looking for their own way to get an advantage at all times.
Yeah, but on that same point, they were taking Bengals were kind of upset and thought that Harbaugh was taking some shots in this game where he doesn't have like Lamar Jackson playing and everything, because they were going to turn around and play each other again now, and they felt that maybe there was a little bit what do you want to say, a little over the top in the physicality department to try and make this upcoming game maybe a little bit easier on the Ravens. And no doubt, man, it's not like, the Steelers sat a bunch of people against the Browns and allowed them to make it into the playoffs a couple of years ago. This was, I think this was a little bit different, maybe a little more calculated with some
wear
foresight.
Wear them down a little bit.
Yeah,
AFC
wear them down.
Football.
Yeah, wear them down. But you had something else to say about Tomlin, I think, too, in regards to his consistency. Once again, 9-8, not a losing season. A lot of people are gonna be like, "Oh, great, the mediocrity," and it's like somebody else was in the comments jumping all over us about like, because we're not overly critical assholes that are gonna just say, "Oh, Tomlin sucks and he should be fired," and this, that, and the other thing, because we know damn well, like, you throw somebody else, what's happened already? You get these high dollar quarterbacks and high dollar coaches. Nathaniel Hackett was the fanciest thing since sliced bread, and Cliff Kingsbury, and these guys are already they're out the door, and there might be some more.
Mike McDaniel has struggled mightily with the closing of the season in Miami. He was a hot name too.
Yeah,
still think he's a smart guy, but yeah, man,
I do too.
Yeah, it's McDaniel. Yeah,
yeah,
but the Tomlin stuff, I think I've figured out almost like a science or a big equation. Finally, the Tomlin debates and the arguments in the Steeler fan base will never stop. Not even long after he's gone in the Hall of Fame, like they will never stop because 2-6 to 9-8. How does that not? How do you not feel good about that? 2-6 to 9-8. Why should I and other people who are accused Tomlin lovers and apologists feel shame for that? To be excited about that kind of turnaround. I've said for a long time, but I always just want a reason to watch and to be engaged and to root and feel like genuine excitement when I watch my team, the Steelers. And Tomlin and the Steelers always give us that every single year, no matter if we lose Big Ben, no matter if we draft a quarterback in the first round, no matter if our defense is complete trash, we always have a reason to watch and a reason to root. We're always alive. Now, whether you think the long-term goal during those said games is unachievable, i.e., the 11-0 run, when even though we were 11-0, everybody's saying, oh, they suck, they're going to lose right away in the playoffs, they're terrible, it doesn't matter. Or any of the years we had a bad defense, like 2014 all the way through 2018-ish, where our defense was terrible, people were still like, oh, well, we're 14-2, we're 13, but our defense is so bad. He still gave the Steeler fans reason to root, watch, and believe that we could do this. We'll at least be in the dance. We have meaningful football to watch every year for the better part of the past forever. And it comes down to, is that complacency or is that appreciation? I think it's as simple as that. And you'll never be able to change a human's mindset when they have a one way of thinking and you have the other. It sounds so stupid, but it's true. It's like some people are never going to look at it as appreciation. They'll always look at it as complacency or mediocrity, as you mentioned. But I don't see it that way. I don't feel it that way. Only one team wins every year. There's 32 teams. Imagine being the Cowboys. Imagine being the Cowboys or a worse team that doesn't even have accolades from the 90s. I think it's a person by person thing that'll never change. No matter, even if Tomlin wins another Super Bowl, which obviously we hope and think he will while in Pittsburgh, there'll be some other argument about how it took him way too long to do it. And it took him he only did it because he's got TJ Watt and Minka Fitzpatrick. And now Kenny Pickett's a top 5 quarterback. There will always be a reason for these people to bring Tomlin down. And I can sit here and admit, because this is true, when we were struggling this year about halfway through, I said that, yeah, Tomlin, he might be coming off with a great coach level a little bit. I knocked him down a peg to good coach. I didn't get extreme with it, but I feel like it took less than 4 months for that prediction of mine to be wrong. I think he's a great coach. I think it's certified. You hear any other fan base, whether it's on TV, on Twitter, in your friend group, if you're friends with another fan of a different team, everybody asks, dude, why do people want Tomlin fired? They don't understand it, and neither do I. I think I do. Like
Yeah.
I just said, I tried to crack the code. And I just want to say one more thing in closing here. It's all the clips you see. It's all the quotes you hear from players. It's the literal success that you see on the field. Tomlin's a great coach, and his players are the number one reason why I think that's true. Because Mason Cole, who's been here not even a full calendar year, he's our new starting center. He had a really good year. He won the Steelers Media Award for being like the best interviewee on the team and having the best availability with the media, best answers, all that stuff. Someone asked him right after the game, how did you stay focused? How did you, 2-6, 3-7, you got to 9-8. What was that like? And Mason Cole said, I don't want to butcher it, so I wrote it down. He goes, quote, "It's Tomlin, man. He just keeps us in it, man. We never felt we were out of it. He always preached, go back to work and get better. Each week we did that. He's a special man. If he's not up there with the best in the league, man, shakes his head. Tomlin's unbelievable. I played for other coaches, and to be here and around this guy, I get it. I get him. I get the Steelers. I get the city. I'm just really appreciative to be here, man." But that was such a beautiful quote, and it's so true, because you hear about some people think it's a flaw of Tomlin's that he never changes his ways, but there's something about coming through with those consistent messages. If you're stubborn to no end and you end up being wrong or you fail, that can hurt your credibility. But his steady mindset, his steady Eddie, always go. We're going to keep being the Steelers. We're going to unleash hell in December. We're going to practice situational football. He reaps what he sows, and you're seeing time and time again, year and year again, his messages resonate with his players, and his players love him. That quote from Mason Cole like really made my day yesterday. I was like, this is so cool, man. Like, because I didn't think, like, Mason Cole has alluded to it before, but he seems like just a great Steeler and a guy who gets it. And it starts at the top with Tomlin.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on all of it. Man, I got so many things. We don't want to chew too much off the bone because we're going to have many weeks and months to talk about whether players come, go, and anything. But Mason Cole is a main reason why I'm like, okay, the Steelers don't have to worry about the center position really anymore. Is he like elite?
Very solid, very
Is he elite?
solid.
No, but he's played top 10, maybe even top 5 at times, and yeah, it's why people do want to play for Mike Tomlin. They call him a cheerleader, but this boils down to it. This isn't our graphic. It comes from All Sports Culture. The Steelers, crazy but true stat, and this has actually changed to now. Steelers have played one game in their 256. I think we're up to 257 or even 258. I'll take a look here in a second. But when this was published, Steelers have played one game in their 256 under Mike Tomlin, where they've been eliminated from playoff contention. I believe that one was like 2013, 2012, maybe one of those 8-8 seasons where they were in fact rebuilding this whole franchise back then too. And it's, tried to tell people like all along that this is this isn't going to happen like overnight. The whole rebuild thing doesn't happen overnight. It's going to be a 3-year process for the offensive line. And when they're making picks for running back and tight end, where they're trying to get elite players that are here for the long term versus, the 6th best tackle that's available, that might not even be a starter in the long term. That's why they're doing this. There's a level of consistency. So yeah, it's up to 258 now. It's 258 games. That was 2 weeks ago. That meme first came out. And, this is a good time to just jump over to, I think Mike Tomlin has only had 3 losses to the Cleveland Browns in his career. I got to go back and take a look at this.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, his head-to-head, and I had it on the cheat sheet, so I'm going to pull it up right here, versus opponent. I'm sorry, 6. He's now 25-6-1 all time against the Cleveland Browns.
Is that good?
No, that's a little good. Kevin Stefanski falls to 25-24 in 3 seasons now. Yikes. And I was like, will the Browns have an itchy trigger finger? And that just goes right to the next topic, that the Cleveland Browns are a dumpster fire. They suck. We've said it all along. We tried to give Brian, all of us, tried to give them some more respect, but tried to tell everybody that was on this bandwagon of thinking or saying that this was a Super Bowl contending team. I'm sitting there like Nelson from The Simpsons and saying, ha ha. Like, I was not exactly screaming it from the mountains, because I'm like, oh, great, Mitch Trubisky. This could be a rough year. This could be the roughest year the Steelers have had in a long time. 9 wins, I felt they could get there. When Brian and I looked over this, I'm going to pull clips from that because people are going to say, oh no, you're full of crap. There's no way that you said it. Yes, we did. We had them at only like a handful, like not a handful's 5, just a couple wins, maybe even 3 before the bye. And then we said, well, win. We started going down like the second half of the schedule. And it was like, so are we trying to say that they're going to absolutely suck and everyone's going to be off this bandwagon and they're going to be talking about firing everyone before the bye? Yes. And then we were saying afterwards, everybody's going to come around and they're going to be proud of how this team finished. And this is going to look scary and they might make the playoffs. And it's going to make everyone look like fools, because the AFC North is just thinking, well, Ben Roethlisberger's out of our sights now. The Steelers they're gonna perpetually suck for seasons to come, and it's like, that's not the way this works in this town. They might not have made the postseason, and somebody would have been able to tack on their dumb little meme of saying, well, Mike Tomlin wouldn't have won a playoff game if they would have went up to Buffalo. So now they're just going to say, well, they haven't won a playoff game in X amount of times. They didn't make the playoffs. Well, it's a news flash. 24 teams in the NFL. There's only 32 of them. 24 will not win a playoff game this year. That's, 3/4, 75% of the league will not win a playoff game every season. And I know you're used to the Steelers' goal of winning Super Bowls. They're building for this. This is a team now that going forward, unlike the Cleveland Browns organization, who spent $240 million on Deshaun Watson, guaranteed money for a guy that, what did he go out and do yesterday? Oh, I don't know. He was 19 of 29. He had 2 touchdowns. We'll get to that real quick, too. 2 picks.
Kenny played better than him if we're going to be serious.
Oh, Kenny did outplay him, even though statistically he had a lower quarterback rating. Kenny was 13 of 29, 195 with a touchdown. But Deshaun looked rattled. He did not look the part. He's not looked the part. He threw what? I said the pregame. He had like 18 passes, but three of them touchdowns against the Commanders the week before because for whatever godforsaken reason they played Carson Wentz. And these are the guys that, like, when I was pounding my fist about Trubisky and Mariota and Winston and Carson Wentz and Matt Ryan and Russ, I like Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson fall off is just mysterious to me. I know you're a big stand for Aaron Rodgers, who now maybe pulling some diva stuff now too, keeping his jersey and thinking that and saying that well, I don't know, I've got to evaluate things and that for $50 million. The Steelers don't
hold on to this one, he says, just in case.
Yeah, at least
my last ride.
Yeah, at least they have their draft picks though. They have a future. You have teams like very unsettled situations. Like the Rams just won a Super Bowl and they're completely out of it. They were what, a 6-win team, a 7-win team that they ended up finishing as. Were they even that high?
Rumors are coming back that he might leave for TV again.
Yeah, they might be out of a coach. No draft picks to build upon. Is Matt Stafford and his back and everything, is he healthy? Or are they going to go, is he going to retire and they end up with Baker? Is Baker a dude? Like, what, Aaron Donald was talking about retirement and was coerced back into coming back. He was ready to leave out on the high note too with the Super Bowl win last year. So it's a very, it's funny to look at, like, the teams that talked so much trash against the Steelers. The Bengals, it's coming. It's creeping up. They probably have this season and next a window of opportunity before Joe Burrow needs to, you're going to back up that truck and pay that dude a lot of money. Lamar might not ever see his bag. So the Ravens has played this game before, like CJ Mosley. They were like, see ya. They've done it with other players that have gotten rid of like guys like Haloti Nada or something. And you're just like, wow, how are they going to compete without them? And they build through the draft. They're too similar to the Steelers that I hate it. It makes me throw up in my mouth. And we love their draft this year. They patched up their offensive line and got some things but without that quarterback, you can't tell me Tyler Huntley's not getting it done. And you got Anthony Brown. The combination ain't going to do it. They thought for a little bit that maybe they could have. No, it doesn't work that way. And their system is built around Lamar Jackson. So unless they spend all this money for Lamar, that's the reason that they have been competitive as of late. And then post Joe Flacco, it's been difficult for them because, number one, Flacco didn't end up being the guy that they thought that he was when they gave him all that money after the Super Bowl. They had to replace legends like an Ed Reed or Ray Lewis. Cleveland Browns do not have that foundation. I'm sorry. And somebody's going to think this is a hot take, but Alex Highsmith is every bit as good as Myles Garrett at this point. Alex Highsmith is just a smidge off of being just that good.
Impact-wise.
Yeah, impact-wise. So I look at the Browns and I look at, wow, they don't have like any draft picks and they have a quarter of their cap taken up with Deshaun Watson and Amari Cooper. And people were like freaking out. They're crapping their pants about the Steelers and their situation. The Steelers stood in their position and got Kenny Pickett in the draft and could end up being a huge steal. And people are like, really, a steal? He should have been a 3rd-round draft pick. No, we don't know that necessarily. It was like, we've made those comments before with like Terrell Edmonds, who, by the way, said he wants to be back and understands the offseason negotiating process now. So it sounds like there'll be less of a hassle maybe in some areas. I think the Steelers have less questions as to some of these teams and some of these organizations. Now they're trying to poach Brian Flores from the Steelers as a linebackers or a positions coach. Now the interview is a defensive coordinator for the Browns. Why would he want to make that kind of change?
Yeah, I said, tell them no.
Yeah.
Ask for permission, tell them no.
Yeah. And
I know we can get a compensatory pick if Flores leaves to some degree, but I'd rather not give him to the Browns. Save him for somebody else.
Yeah, no, in division. Does he look at that situation and say to himself, oh, yeah, I'm going to be there longer than a year? No, you're going to be hired on Stefanski's staff. And if this team is the hot garbage that they have been for the last couple of years, Stefanski's on the hot seat. he might be out next year, and that whole staff is gone, and that apartment or whatever or house that you just got. Like I was saying this with Brian just jokingly about coaching staff. So here you go, it's Flores. Steelers, I think, if you could keep him as a position coach, like Terrell Austin, there was a lot of commentary, and when I was starting to broach that subject about the highest paid defense. But when you don't have those high dollar players on the field, and you're playing Josh Jackson or Quincy Wilson or somebody like that, okay, that's not the highest paid defense now. That was just like grocery baggers off the street. I think you got to give. I really thought that Brian Flores was being groomed, maybe, or being held like a Keith Butler, for example, to take over like when Dick LeBeau walked away. And I was thinking that might be like a similar, because there was a talk about whether or not Tomlin was asked that question today, whether there was any retirements or something like that. So I strongly feel that if Flores wouldn't be groomed just to be head coach if Tomlin ever to walk away. I mean, he's been doing this a long time, and it doesn't sound like he's ready to walk away just yet. But if you're patient enough, Brian, you could send your kids through school here in like the Pittsburgh area. You don't have to move. I don't know if he has kids, but if you're building a family or anything like that, it's not going to be as tumultuous as going to Cleveland, and then from Cleveland, you're going to end up wherever else. And there's going to be teams that are going to blacklist you because you have, or currently maybe, the ongoing lawsuit with the league. Nobody wanted to touch him. He was like a pariah or a leper. And this is where the Steelers see opportunity. And it's like, man, this guy, and I think his fingerprints were on this defense for sure in the latter half of this season, as much as I think Mike Sullivan's fingerprints were on the offense as well. If Matt Canada ends up going, I don't want to go there just yet, but you take a look at the two organizations and it's like, okay, Cleveland, you continue to suck, and now your future doesn't look nearly as bright. This window, this door that you had with all the young talent and the top level picks, this is slammed shut, and you don't even have the picks now that benefit from your 7-win season this year. They really thought, I had friends, I don't know if you have any that are Browns friends and family, but there are people that crawled out of the woodwork yesterday. Good for you, man. I know I'm long-winded. I'll let you talk, but they came out of the freaking woodwork yesterday. They're like sending me pictures. Where you at? Blah, blah, blah. Because they went up early, and all of a sudden they're talking all their smack. And I just sit there patiently. I'm like the old kung fu kind of like mentee, mentor type relationship. I'm sitting there with like the stick, and I whack the young kids when they get out of line. And I'm just waiting for that opportunity. I'm going to whack them and say, see,
like Rafiki from Lion King.
Exactly. They never learn. So, thank you, Cleveland, for continuing to suck and screw up your organization. Stay away from Brian Flores.
It's the bad franchises stay bad. Yeah. People toss that term around, and it's true, because bad franchises stay bad. Good franchises continue to do what they do to stay good. And you have to look no further than the Browns and the Steelers. Now, it's exciting. It's fun. I myself, every single March that comes around and free agency starts in the NFL, I talk myself into the fun ideas of bringing in guys like Tyrann Mathieu, Aaron Rodgers, Tremaine Edmonds will be my new one this year. And it is a fun idea. Bringing in superstars does work sometimes, but it's these teams that just get stuck in this rut, and it's always the same teams: the Browns, the football team, the Commanders, Redskins, whatever their name is, the Commanders, the Browns,
the Jets, the Texans,
the Jaguars, until they finally did the right thing and got the right quarterback. I'm not going to give the Jaguars themselves that much credit, but they seem to be good now. But the teams that they put everything into the shock and awe and the spending big money and making the big moves without really thinking them through. And the Rams got the immediate payoff. They can sleep at night knowing that, but the payback is just so severe. They are so bad now with so many big contracts and so few draft picks. It's how worth it is that really? Would you want the Steelers to be in that position? For the Rams, it looks like the next 4 or 5 years they're going to be pretty shitty. And I might be being generous.
And a tough division too, like that.
Very tough division.
Should be a tough division, right?
And I want the Steelers to do exciting things as much as the next guy, but you're seeing it live time blow up in the Browns' faces with the Deshaun Watson thing. I mean, he seems like a different quarterback. I know his release is the same and his mannerisms and who he is the same, but yesterday, watching him live at Heinz Field, he just his best plays were when he would take off and run. It's like, yeah, he can still do that, but he wasn't reading the defense very well. He was taking a lot of sacks, running into sacks. And I think I think it's not crazy to say that he might never be the same quarterback that we saw with the Texans, and the Browns are on the hook for it. Whereas the Steelers, you look at good franchises like the Steelers, the Bills are a great example. The Bills are seeing the payoff of doing it the right way right now. They haven't won a championship yet, but the better part of the past 2, 3 seasons, it's been well known that they're a juggernaut. They have a legit good quarterback. They haven't done anything crazy as far as addressing needs with an outside the house addition. I know they traded for Stephon Diggs and they signed Von Miller. Okay. We traded for Minka Fitzpatrick and we signed, I don't know, we haven't signed anybody
James
outside of the house.
Daniels.
What's up?
James Daniels.
James Daniels, sure. And
Hey, he's
so
solid. It shores up the O
moves.
line, right? That was a need. So
Yeah, no,
yeah.
he made a good contract.
Miles
So they'll
Jack.
make the necessary moves and they'll spend necessary capital, but they don't get ahead of their skis. You have to play both sides of it. You have to make necessary moves, but you can't put all your eggs in one basket. That's what bad franchises do, like the Browns, and franchises that are smart and have proven and continued success, like the Steelers, Bills, Ravens. They do it the right way. And I think this year was the first step or second step, because Najee and Freiermuth are second year guys. You're seeing it happen live time without us losing all of our money, without us sacrificing too much draft capital. We're doing it the right way because we are a well ran franchise.
Yeah. Because you don't have all of that turnover and change
Never.
constant. So somebody with different ideas and having to offload players you don't want in your scheme or system that are cost still on your books and everything like that. Like everything is positioning itself that a lot of people are like, well, they won't be able to keep Alex Highsmith, who led the team with 14.5 sacks. And it's amazing how many people just finally woke up to this. As I was telling everyone last year, like, hey, this guy's on the rise. Like, look at when everybody was more concerned with Melvin Ingram crying and whining his way out of town than they were at looking at the young guy waiting in the wings who was kicking
Alex
ass.
Highsmith a free agent this year?
No, he'll be in a contract year coming up, but people are already discussing as to whether or not they'd be able to keep him. Why not?
I missed that.
You don't have money invested in Kenny Pickett. You don't have money invested in Pat Freiermuth, who, by the way, dodged any serious like ACL, MCL, PCL tear, hearing just a sprain coming out of the news. So that's also good because that would be the entire offseason up to like training camp if he's ready for week 1 type
You're
of news.
You're always hoping for the sprain, dude. When you see them go down with their knee, that's what I was telling people around me in the stands. Like, oh, his knee's shot. He's done. I said, what? It could be a sprain. Like, ended up being right.
Hoping.
Thank God.
Yeah, you're really hoping there. And 14.5 sacks, and he has like 20, I think, or 20.5 in the last 29 games. You go back to Seattle of last year, and all the quarterback hits and everything like that. And I made those comparisons. I said he was better than Jadeveon Clowney, who just smart talked his way out of even playing on Sunday. Just another dumpster fire thing. I'm going to continue to dump on the Browns because I just love this. Nick Chubb had a 6.4 yards per carry average in yesterday's game. And over the last several losses with the Cleveland Browns, this is why I thought maybe they're going to fire an OC, or they're maybe got like Stefanski's on the hot seat too, because he's supposed to be the offensive guru here. Obviously brought in to make Baker Mayfield a better player, which he's not there anymore. So now it's going to be, the thought is going to be, well, what can we do to get Deshaun everything he needs in order to whatever? And it's like, well, you got to have people that are better than Donovan Peoples-Jones, for example, to throw to. And
I know, dude. Thank God they're morons, because I was worried. The only thing I was worried about as the game
Chubb.
went yesterday was Nick Chubb, because he had a couple nice plays. And if the Browns had any sense of awareness, they would have just kept pounding Nick Chubb. I know you can't always run, but I mean, it was getting to a point yesterday where I would have tried that if I was Stefanski.
Yeah, he started the year out with 4 out of 5 games over 100 yards rushing.
I know, brother, you're talking to a fantasy shareholder here, Nick Chubb.
And I mean, then you go and he plays the next last 9 games of the season. He topped 100. He got the 99 on one of them against the Ravens. And
he had 0 catches. He scored 9.9 points in fantasy.
Well, that's exactly it. He only had 2 touchdowns in a 9-game span.
Yeah.
And you're trying to figure out, okay, they had a winning formula. He had 104 yards last week, but they didn't just keep pounding them against the Saints in like sub-zero weather. They didn't keep pounding them against the Steelers here. It's not a magical formula when you have the Steelers outrunning, like Najee Harris, 23 carries, 84 yards, but he's only averaging 3.7 per carry. The Steelers ran for 148 yards and limited the Browns to 134. That sounds like pretty good winning football. They dared Deshaun to throw the ball. And in some circumstances here, I'm going to be talking about officiating here momentarily. It's just like they locked everything down, man. It was 2 for 51. There was a couple of plays that squirted out here. It's not like David Njoku like hurt them big time. Deshaun did end up extending some plays. I see holes on their team, and I see areas now where the contracts are going to catch up to them. And I'm thankful that the Steelers are running the way that they're run, and they don't have the clown show that's up in Cleveland. Now, with all of that said, there was some stuff that happened in this game that afforded all of my idiot friends and family to go and start, what do you want to say, poking the bear or instigating me when the Browns went up a little early. And the refs don't just stink, they suck. And this was the worst officiated game by far this season. I told everyone coming into this that Clete Blakeman is horrible, not only his crew is bad, but they're bad particularly in these AFC North games. Be it any combination of the Steelers and somebody else, or when I see him go and do like a Bengals-Ravens game, which hopefully he wasn't graded high enough to get that playoff assignment for this upcoming weekend, because he will put a torch to that game too. Yeah.
If he does, you have to let me know, because I'll take the under.
Yeah. That's tough with the Bengals, man. This game had a 40.5, I think, going into it, the Steelers and Browns. It was one of the higher ones of the season.
I don't know, because I actually didn't take the over or under.
Yeah. So I believe it was. But
that sounds about right.
I know people they're gonna like bitch and complain about Tomlin not challenging that first drive, Najee Harris, where he scores. And we're in the stadium, you can't see it. There's not really any replays. People at home are seeing some of it, and people are debating yes, no, should it be challenged? Is there anything on video that's good enough? They're obstructed. And this is one of those things where let the play out, call it a touchdown, and then review it. Like, the referees are so stuck on being right instead of use this tool to assist you. And why don't we have more camera angles? And that's 7 points right there, right then and there. There was also later on, I know that Larry Ogunjobi got a face mask. I don't care. They missed that too, and that was garbage. Okay, let's talk about the Robert Spillane illegal contact or whatever, where he was like within 2 yards of the line of scrimmage and they called like an illegal contact, or it wasn't a pass interference, and gave the Browns a new set of downs on what ended up being a scoring drive where Deshaun, no, he's out of the league too. Deshaun Watson ends up leaking out, extending a play, and guys are trying to grab him, and you don't know what you could do because they allowed the quarterbacks to wear skirts. And another play later on, which ended in a touchdown as well, where Cam Hayward, all he did was tackle the guy, and they're going to say he slammed him with force or whatever. How are you supposed to let go of him? He's slipped out a few times and then ends up making these big plays, and I believe that was on third down or second down maybe. And it was going to force
I think it was second, but when you look at it, it would have been like 3rd and 10 or whatever from the 1 instead of first down automatically, so, which they punched it in the next play. So it was a huge penalty, man. I don't know if you can tell or the listeners can tell, but my voice is a little raspy. It isn't like gone where I've gone to the game before, i.e. when they finally put Kenny in versus the Jets, or like the Ravens game last year, late in the season, where my voice has been completely shot for like a week straight. I was pretty under control majority of the game, but when they called that flag on Cam Hayward for roughing the passer, I booed so loud, my voice cracked at a moment that I thought I did severe damage to my throat.
Oh, yeah.
I was so fired up, man. The whole, too, like, yeah, it's a home game, so the crowd's going to give the refs shit, like, regardless of if they're right or wrong. But from the intensity of the boos and how pissed off everyone is when it's actually a bad call. Like, the play was over and done The Browns scored their touchdown, and the refs were getting ready for kickoff, and they jogged down by the end zone where I was sitting, and the boos came back. Like the crowd wasn't
Yeah.
done booing after the touchdown the Browns scored. It was like, no, you guys fucked up this bad. Like, we're gonna let you hear about it until you give us a makeup call. Which I was trying to tell people around me. I was like, it's okay, it's okay. They owe us a makeup call. Those happen. Makeup call. And we got one later. They gave us the pass interference on Deontay and the no face mask on Lario. I can't remember if that was before or after, but that was the one thing I was clinging to in the stands was like, they screwed this up so bad for us. They owe us 15 yards somehow. We're going to get a play here because that happens in the NFL a lot of the time is whenever the refs mess up that bad, they'll give the other team a penalty. It's sad but true. Not sad, but it's your team that gets the payback. But I was waiting for something to happen because that was so egregious. Cam didn't throw him down. It was Deshaun Watson's own flailing that came down when he slapped his arm on the ground. That causes like this. It causes like dramatic scene. He was totally fine, and yeah, man, that had me real hot. Like I said, you can tell when the refs are really messing up, and it isn't just like a bias from the home crowd.
Yeah, and Deshaun, in that whole thing, Clete Blakeman's the one who called. He was there. He's the white hat, and I'm down in that same corner. He came to that same corner, and he was talking with one of his crewmates there. And the boo still carried through because people spotted him in that area, and it's like, we're not even gonna let you talk. You were just like, that was just so ridiculous. And actually, that scenario that played out was 1st and 10 from the Steelers 14. Kareem Hunt ran for 3 yards. Then Deshaun stepped back to pass. It was only a 5-yard roughing the passer because I believe it was that maybe a half to distance type deal within that situation. So within 20 yards, but he was sacked. It would have been a loss of 8. It would have been let's see. I'm trying to see 1st and 10, 2nd and 7. That would have been, I'm trying to do the math, 3rd and 15 from the Steelers 19, practically the 20-yard line out. And they were probably in 2-down territory, being down 20-7. It felt like they were willing Cleveland back into the game to make it competitive and maybe screw the Steelers over at the very end of this. And then, of course, you got a 14-play, 75-yard drive after this. It only took 5 minutes, 34 seconds. And this was Derek Watt scoring a touchdown and doing the gritty. So
the gritty was awesome, dude. You know what else is awesome? Psychic Flash was on full control during the game yesterday. Sometimes I'm in the zone and I go full Tony Romo. And not only did I get the Derek Watt touchdown right, I didn't call the play, but it was kind of quiet around my section. And I was like, give it to Derek Watt. And this kid, like 4 rows back, turns around, like literally pointing and laughing at me like I'm some kind of cartoon character. And I'm like, what, dude? Like, he's gotten 5 first downs this year.
Yeah.
And because I said that, my buddy next to me laughed and was like, that's so funny that you just like hold on to that stat. And I was like, he gets the ball across the line. And then the next play he scored. And I reached down and I tapped the guy on the shoulder and he turns around laughing because I'm like, you know, you did wrong. And I nailed that. I nailed Pickens' touchdown because we're sitting there before Pickens' touchdown early in the game. And the play before, Kenny went to Deontay in the corner of the end zone on a fade. And I'm sitting with my buddy, and he's like, dude, why is it Deontay? Why don't they give Pickens that shot? He should get the shot over Deontay. And I'm like, I hear you, dude. I kind of agree, especially after what we've been seeing these past few weeks. Next play, Pickens is in the slot. I lean over. I'm like, dude, Pickens in the slot. Look for the seam. Same play as the Raider game, right there in the clear. And before I could really even finish my sentence, the ball was snapped and Kenny threw it to Pickens for a touchdown. And my friend went freaking nuts, dude. It felt like I scored. And I was like, I called that. There it is.
Yeah, and those sequence of plays, actually, the one to Derek Watt, they were trying to force the ball some to get Deontay his first touchdown, but he got a little bit after this, at least a consolation prize and a little maybe end zone celebration on a 2-point conversion to go up 28-14. But they looked at them. Actually, both of those passes in the red zone for Deontay Johnson tipped at the line of scrimmage, which really sucked for his luck. He didn't even have an opportunity to try and make a play. And they were kind of fortunate. The one, they didn't have a turnover early because you're like, oh, here we go again. But he caught the ball like high on his shoulder and it wasn't really caught and it was bobbled. And as soon as I saw that and it was kind of knocked away, I was like, oh, good, incomplete pass. It's like bailed out. But people are already ready to like boo. I'm so sick of like them clinging to. There was somebody on my Twitter just yesterday that was talking about that Pickens and Deontay Johnson don't have reliable hands because they have 5 statistical drops this season. And I'm like, that's just so ridiculous. Stephon Diggs, Jamar Chase, and countless others. I think Travis Kelce have like 6, 7, 8 statistical drops. And it's like, well, they have more targets. Not than the Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson, somewhere along the line here, I do have this. He does lead the team in receiving, or finish leading the team in receiving, with 86 catches on 147 targets. I would say that's in Stephon Diggs territory for sure. Jamar Chase territory. He also ended up finishing with 882 yards receiving. George Pickens more the deep threat, 52 receptions, 801 yards. So Pat Freiermuth finishes with 63 catches, which is second on the team, 732. He left the game early. Pickens with 4 TDs, and he was certainly hot, very hot stuff, a hot commodity towards the end of this season, as was, let's give it up for our guy, Connor Hayward, who is just, he's sneaky. He's so sneaky. I know that we're going to have a lot of talk as we go on and into the offseason here about who comes, who goes, who replaces, who does this. He earned some more PT. You've got to say, though, like how, even though we're talking about the refs kind of suck type of topic, and we didn't really, I think, have this on our on deck, so to speak, people are already jumping to the draft talk, right? And with the draft, and they're not like, it's kind of funny to me just for the sake of like, we got free agency still. We've still got
Joe would rather talk politics than NFL draft before March.
Yeah, because you still got a combine. You still look at all the needs the Steelers filled. Like they need offensive line. They're going to draft offensive line. They're going to draft offensive line. Then they sign Mason Cole and get James Daniels. They bring back Chuks Okorafor, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're pretty much locked into these 5 guys. So it's very hard to predict. The other thing is like when you get on the train of like Thaddeus Moss, who worked out with the Steelers and may sign, I would assume he was given a tryout for maybe a futures contract, but around this time several years ago when he was coming off of LSU, having all of those guys drafted off of Burrow's team, people had him as high as like a first round pick, and he went completely undrafted, if I recall correctly. If not,
that was like a month after the season. But then the word got out pretty quick that he was a raw dude. I saw him mock second, third a couple of times, and then as soon as we got to like the combine time, he was out of there. But after the season, people were really high on him. And what do you want people to do, man? We got 2 first round picks. That's so exciting. You know, we've never had 2 first round picks.
Yeah, you know what? I want to bring up that tankathon again, too. But no, it just goes back to people talk about how, oh, well, the Steelers suck at drafting. You know what I mean? Now you're jumping to the draft already. And it's like, look at this draft class just this year. Like Kenny Pickett, George Pickens, DeMarvin Leal, Connor Hayward, like
Robinson.
Mark Robinson got like 11 snaps yesterday. So the
whole draft played except for Calvin Austin, who got hurt. And he Connor Hayward played. What's up?
And he would have played. He
would have definitely he was killing it in practice, man. And Connor Hayward, I continue to just be so impressed with his athleticism. You know, it's hard to describe, but I'm going to try. Some NFL players, and NBA players, and some athletes, they just have it. You know, like their athleticism is elite. I'm not calling Connor Hayward an elite player right now, but his athleticism is elite, I think, because he's just so. People use the word effortless. I don't want to come off like I don't think they try. It isn't effortless, but it's natural. They just flow. They have hands like glue. They are always open. His acrobatic catches that he's made this year, more than one occasion, those aren't easy catches, but he makes them look easy. And I've said it before, he's built like a fire hydrant. Like his athleticism doesn't really make sense, but he's so fun to watch because he's so smooth and natural. It's kind of coincidental because I think George Pickens also has this like elite athletic trait that it just looks easy for him out there. Like they those two, George Pickens, Connor Hayward, they were born to play football, and it sticks out every time one of them gets a target and snags it. It's satisfying, like mentally to watch.
Yeah, I've called George Pickens Antonio Brown with physical gifts like
Yeah,
size, bigger, stronger. The stuff he does just looks so ridiculous. I'm not ready to jump on. People are talking about corners. They're talking about, Addison that was with Pitt and drafting a wide receiver. And I'm like, look, Steve Sims is back, and they already drafted Austin and Pickens last year, and they signed Deontay. They've got like 4 right there. I don't expect Gunner to be back. We'll get into those deeper talks later. Forgot about Anthony Miller was in camp and looked real good. We haven't even said Miles Boykin, who's been a special teams stud. But the Steelers, I just wanted to verify this before I shot my mouth off here. So by virtue of the way this lays out with the Chicago Bears ending up in Lovie Smith losing his job for going for 2, probably, Steelers will pick 17th. And then we see him again at the top of the second round with pick 33. Thank you, Chicago. Well, I'm sorry. They still have it listed here, but don't forget, it'll be pick 32 because pick 22 vacated by the Miami Dolphins for their shenanigans with Tom Brady. And then pick 50 in the middle of the second round here. So the Steelers, 3 picks in the top 50. That's going to be the talk, but they've got some money that they could spread around, either, extending or bringing their own people back. And we'll be talking about that as it goes forward. But it was kind of annoying to me that all of a sudden it's like, okay, what are we going to draft? And it's like, well, we don't know. We don't know who's coming back. Like, you're going to go for.
It's early. It's early.
I know, but corners, like will William Jackson III be here? Like, that move, was it supposed to pay off a little better? Were they unhappy with Witherspoon? Witherspoon was hurt. Was that a byproduct of that? Levi Wallace kept,
I think we need to see what happens with Cam Sutton first and foremost.
He's a very high priority for me, maybe the highest. Like, I think Larry Ogunjobi or having somebody on the defensive line, if you roll with Leal, it's not like Hayward's getting any younger. You're still feeling some of the effects of stuff on Tuitt retirement, et cetera, et cetera. But that was completely like ignored, and people were like, oh, offensive line, because all these guys suck. And it's like, well, they came together, and I'm not so high like on Dotson or Moore, but it's because of Joey Porter Jr. That's the reason people are saying corner and Addison wide receiver. I'm like, yeah, I'm like,
you're doing my mock draft, dude. Stop ruining it.
I don't see as many holes, and it all depends on what they end up doing and what kind of deals they end up making. And you've got Omar Khan has been the guy that's always made these shrewd contract moves, and he's still in position, and Andy Weidel is now there to kind of make.
Man, they're killing it on their first try, dude. But the guys they brought in this year, for the amount of money they had, and they're able to spread it all out. I mean, we haven't even mentioned Casey today.
I know.
I love DeMonte Casey. I hope we can get him back. We signed him for pennies, but he's got this elite trait that if you're a safety and you can be a center fielder and you have range like that, it's more rare than you think. You think, oh, you play safety, you can cover ground, right? You're a defensive back, you should be able to cover. No, it's not that simple. The Steelers have been cursed with a lot of safeties who don't have good range, but you see Minka has that ability, and Casey isn't anywhere near the talent level of Minka Fitzpatrick, but because he has that sixth sense of being able to know where the ball's going and be rangy in that way, he's extremely valuable, probably one of the best third safeties that a team can have. And we signed him for pennies on the dollar. So I hope he can come back. And that starts with Omar Khan and Weidel, like you said, and they put us in position with 2 first-round picks. I say again, we've never had 2 first-round picks or 2 first-rounders, right? Wrong. Because actually 32 is still a second-round pick. And basically we're going to get the 32nd picked player by legal definition in the draft. Yeah. But he's going to be a second-round pick, so he's not going to get that first-round contract. He will cost less.
Yeah, no fifth-year option, unfortunately, either, so you lose a little bit of control over the contract.
Yeah, there's good and bad.
Yeah, but that's okay. I mean, we're still talking a 32nd player for Chase Claypool,
because
who wasn't missed.
What? That too, and when you have 2 first-round picks on fifth-year options together, often teams can't pay them, because look no further to Minka Fitzpatrick, Terrell Edmonds. When we got Minka Fitzpatrick in here, him and Terrell Edmonds are the same draft class. So we had 2 fifth-year options to deal with, and we couldn't do it. We got lucky and got Edmonds back, but it could bite them, because they can't afford 2 fifth-year options. So there's all this stuff you can look at, and it's all fun speculation right now.
It is. And I know we're getting long in the tooth here, but just on that same note with all the DBs and whatnot, and my little rant about that, it's like, you want to replace who with what? Why not stay status quo here? Steelers had 20 interceptions in 2022, the most in the NFL. Minka accounted for 6 of them, which is tied with Sauce Gardner, Justin Simmons, and Tariq Woolen. What a pick Tariq Woolen was. And that goes to show you that you don't have to shoot very high in the draft to get somebody like that. So Minka is the first Steelers player to lead the NFL in interception since Mel Blount in 1975. Wow. Talk about Hall of Fame territory, right? So yeah, just the final thing I think I have for us is, who do you have your early pick to make it all the way? Like, it's tough because I hate most of these teams, so I don't even want to say. It's tough. It's like, do the 49ers, can they go the distance with Brock Purdy or whatever? Like, they seem to be built.
I hate to say it, but I think there's just that midnight's going to strike and they're going to turn into a pumpkin over there. I can't see Brock Purdy making it to the dance. I like Bills to win it all, and I think they'll play the Eagles are the safe choice, but part of me wants to say Tampa Bay just because.
Oh, no. That's rotten. Like,
the Bills win. I think the Bills win, but I could see Tom Brady just being like, yeah, you know what? I feel like getting back to the Super Bowl, so I'm going to go there. And then they lose to the Bills.
Yeah, the NFL.
It's Jalen Hurts. I'm sorry, it's Jalen Hurts. I don't know enough about the Eagles with Jalen Hurts right now, so I don't know about the NFC really at all. I'm just being that guy to be like, I'm gonna say that the Buccaneers will make it, so that somebody says that, because most people probably are counting them out right away.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering. I know I have. I'm kind of wondering about the Bills. The Chiefs have had an ample amount of rest, and they look like they get in shootouts. So if the Bills can play some defense, but I know they've got some trouble in their defensive backfield. They also have a repeat divisional game, which is never easy. You don't know what's going to happen with Tua. The Giants, I'm like, can the Giants have enough? The team that's the pumpkin for me is the Vikings. I think they've been pretenders the whole time. They could even lose to the Giants coming up here.
Their defense is terrible.
Ravens and Bengals is not a good matchup for either one of them. I think they lose in the very next round. Whoever ends up coming out of that one victorious. The Chargers and Jaguars, like, I don't know, they don't excite me a whole lot. The Chargers coming on a little bit more, but then sometimes they look a little dumb. The Jaguars, they didn't even get a first down in that game. Neither team did, with the Titans and Josh Dobbs, who's going to be QB2
they're
next
like
year.
So similar, dude. The Jaguars and Chargers, they're just too young and inexperienced right now to make it very far. Both their quarterbacks, I think, are legit. They both have awesome hair, great arms, but I don't think that the Chargers or Jaguars are going to go very far.
Yeah, I know I'm just trying to think here. I'm like, do I like the Cowboys a little bit better, like, than the Eagles? Like, that could be a really tough matchup too. So as much as it pains me to say I don't like the Cowboys, it's tough for me it's a coin flip with the Chiefs and the Bills. I think the Bills really, 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 really have that, like, intangible factor right now, and they're very tough to slow down. And I think the Cowboys may have enough of it to beat a lot of these other teams. I think they know enough about the Eagles. I think the early favorite would be the Eagles, but you've convinced me with the Jalen Hurts thing and Gardner Minshew. Like, could they do that again like they had with Wentz and Foles? If that comes down to it, I don't know. But I'm looking at the Eagles right now, and I think the Eagles you're looking at a preview of next year's Pittsburgh Steelers. People were sleeping on the quarterback. There was a lot of moves and things that are going to happen in the draft
yes,
here.
Dude. I love those vibes.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it. Give me the Eagles. I was thinking Eagles or Cowboys, and give me the Bills over the Chiefs. So it'll be Bills, Eagles, and probably the Bills victorious. I don't even know where they're playing the Super Bowl this year, but that'll do it for us, man. We got a lot here, so much so that maybe we'll just take a break. Because what are we going to do? Just talk about everyone else's games that are coming up this weekend? We kind of already did. So
we can wait till some moves are made. Maybe some firing, some hiring, some promoting, some demoting.
We'll be popping in. We usually try and do 2 a week still. So we'll still be with all of you out there. And we know you watch a lot more in the off season. It gets spicy. We have a lot of hot takes. So that'll do it for us. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. My name's Joe Kuzma. Oh, final score. Pittsburgh Steelers, as if I needed to remind anyone, 28, Cleveland Browns 14. Bang. I got it somewhere around here. I don't want, the pup sitting back there sleeping. I'm going to throw it down here. I threw it in the general vicinity of her.
You're a good dad.
Yeah, I can't do that. Shoot your eye out. Oh, that's pretty cool, man. I like that. I should put, Yeah, I should have put you on the full screen, but up against it. Once again, folks, my name's Joe Kuzma. His name's Zach Celadonia. Till next time. Hey, sounds like most Indians are happy out there. So at least satisfied to a certain degree. I know some
We got
people.
smart fans.
Well, the 2%ers they're still hanging around. There's still people who throw around the word disappointment. I'm not so quick to say that with this season. It's about where I expected it to be, right on the cusp of maybe making the playoffs. And I'm very happy that they did that because it makes me seem intelligent and look smart. So, and same with all the rest of us here.
That's what matters, baby.
Yep, that's the only thing. I'm never wrong, right? So, till next time, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.